This is Community Unveiled, meeting the secret validators. On this podcast and YouTube series, we are here to allow the secret community to have a personal connection and insight into the validators that support the secret network. Here at Secure Secrets, we value community, privacy as a human right, transparency as the key to unlocking the full value of a decentralized community, and finally, continuous growth through teamwork and collaboration. I'm Carter Lee Wetzel with Secure Secrets, your host. Without further ado, let's meet our guest. All right, guys, we are back with another episode of Community Unveiled. Today, we have a very special guest, Andrew Cronk. So in your own words, who is Andrew personally, professionally, 30 seconds, and what is your validator that you're representing?
Sure. Hey, my name's Andy. Personally, I'm a dad, father of two. I live in Michigan in the US. Professionally, I do all things product at Figment Networks, and that is our validator, Figment Networks. We've been doing proof of stake networks for a couple of years, and I think we probably have done over 30 test nets, and we're really excited about Secret, and I look forward to talking about why personally it's one of the most exciting networks that we're going to be working on.
Sure. So Figment is a pretty large, service that you guys run. So what is special about the Secret Network, and what's kind of inspired Figment to run a validator node on this particular network?
Right. Yeah. So we all say Secret today, but we've been talking with the team since it was called Enigma and following things since back then. So the space specifically is probably anyone who's been following it for a long time has the same curiosity that I do, which is given privacy as a new tool for developers, what can be built? We've looked at all sorts of things from different kind of mixers and things like that, but I think there's much more that's going to be discovered. And so, I'm not excited about any one specific app that I already know about. I'm more excited about what's going to happen once we put these tools in developers' hands, things that we haven't really thought of yet. So I think that the team has done a great job of, selecting Cosmos as an ecosystem, selecting CosmWasm as a sort of a smart contract system. And I think it's just going to be a sort of explosion of new things that are going to happen. Right. And that's what I'm most excited about.
Sure. Was Figment helped with the testnet a little bit, right? With some of the testing, some of that? How was that experience out of curiosity?
Well, the real technical innovation that's happening here is trying to get Intel's SGX to run on a blockchain.
Yep.
And we've seen other networks going at it, Scale or Oasis, and the testnets were first about can we just get some validators stood up around this whole sort of secret concept.
Sure.
But really the tests and really still ongoing around SGX, those are kind of be the biggest challenges. And when I think about as a stepping outside of just Figment and thinking about as a network, how are the validators going to be created something that's secure? Right now, I think it's just Microsoft's Azure that offers SGX sort of as a service.
In terms of what's compatible right now, I think that's correct.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. And so, obviously we want a lot of different data centers, and we want a lot of people securing the network. And so one thing I'm personally watching and really going to be sort of advocating for is, getting a large number of validators in a large number of different data centers. And so, one good thing about Figment is our co-founders used to have a data center company that they started, grew, and sold. And so we have physical infrastructure. So we're not just bound to Azure, but it's one thing, as I think more long-term beyond the launch, and as things we're learning in testnet is how can we get this nice spread of different data centers and people who are supporting SGX that can secure the secret network.
Sure. Well, that's great to hear that you're considering, the long-term health of the network and how we're going to secure it as a collective decentralized community. So, how do you see the secret network in the community? How do you think it's going to evolve the next 2 years? Because everyone knows we're kind of at this early, very exciting stage where mainnet's about to launch. And obviously when Secret was Enigma, it was just it was a deep research phase, trying to figure out, where do we fit into the larger blockchain ecosystem. But starting September 14th, we are arriving. It's the beginning of a live mainnet with secret contracts. So what do you envision for the next 2 years? for Secret Network.
Right. I mentioned earlier that the things I get excited about are the things that we don't know that people are going to build. No, there are things I'm excited about that I think we already know people can build. And I think that the first place that Secret Network is going to get a foothold and really expand and do unique things in the next 2 years is probably around bringing privacy to DeFi.
Yep.
And I think you've seen, DEX has become popular, decentralized exchanges have become popular, and automated market makers become popular. But the front running is a very big problem. And I think that this is a place where people will see that Secret can do unique things. And that's sort of where we'll start. So I think this sort of riding the sort of privacy plus DeFi wave for the next 2 years,
Sure.
I think it's got to be pretty big. And I think that a lot of the use cases that will be discovered will be relatively small in the next 2 years compared to DeFi, but
Sure.
the seeds are going to be planted in these next 2 years. So I imagine a big splash after we launch with then the sort of emergent use cases will come.
Sure. I think that's a great answer. And I think that's a shared excitement with most people in the ecosystem. So how do you, obviously as validators, we have people delegate to us as validators, and we play an important role in governance, and investing in the future health of the network and fund allocation and voting proposals. So how do you feel about governance with the Secret Network? And, is there anything you would change right now? Like what's your kind of view of the health status of governance on this particular chain?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked about governance. It's definitely one of my favorite topics. And so when I think about governance, I think about the value to the network, and I think it's about how fast you can iterate. We all have good ideas, and we launch these mainnets, but then we always have to change things. This is just sort of the general rule of startups. And so when I hear governance, I think iteration speed. So if you have active participation, active governance, you're going to be able to update your network and move faster than competing networks. And so the few things I like that I'm seeing in governance, and this is really a big positive for Secret being part of the Cosmos ecosystem, is that other projects, like there's a project called Kava, 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 they created something called committees. So it's a new module in Cosmos called committees that allows you to delegate sort of a subset of decisions to a smaller group. So instead of having, a network-wide token vote on every single proposal, which might be relatively slow, you can have a smaller committee, who just deals with certain aspects. You can have certain parameters that can be iterated faster on. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited to sort of see us moving from the sort of one token, one vote model to having things that can help the network iterate more quickly. And so to that end, at Figment, I think we were one of the early validators to hire people whose entire job was governance, and really educating the people that delegate to us by writing up, research proposals, writing up, here's how we understand, here's why we're voting this way, and explaining it. So I'm really excited to see that that a number of the innovations in the Cosmos ecosystem for governance can be ported back to Secret as well.
Yeah, I think it's huge, especially from a community perspective, to have your large and small validators that you delegate to be perfectly transparent about, hey, here's a proposal. This is exactly why we support this. So props to Figment for doing that. I think it's super appreciated by the larger community. And as a validator myself, that's definitely something we'll be focused on as well, as that transparency. And it's so exciting to know that in the Cosmos ecosystem that we're willing to experiment with governance. We're willing to try to iterate and move quickly. And how do we empower people that do want to further the network and allow them to move quickly with building, right? So those little sub governance structures could be super cool. So if that gets incorporated.
Yeah. If I can kind of jump in real quick, I think, even though that there's neat things like this committees module I talked about, there's also, I think, a pretty big overhead for anyone who wants to submit a proposal. And so I think that's another area we should focus on, is lowering the overhead to submitting a proposal. Or another way to think about that is, how can you, before doing all the work to put together a proposal and you don't know if it's going to pass or not, like, can we do something sort of as an iterative step? Can you do a sort of straw poll, or can you sort of do a early vote, or can you collect signatures, or anything like that? We're mimicking a lot of what you see in like real world governance with petitions and stuff like that.
Sure.
But I think that if we can make it more well understood, so it's not such a black box, like, how do I submit this proposal as a transaction on chain, and really try to get more social consensus, I think that's how we're going to get more proposals that are better vetted across the line.
I agree, and I would even say that within the community, I think there's a sensitivity towards submitting a proposal that might get denied, because I think people don't think that they can necessarily iterate on a proposal that's, had the whole community say no to. So I think there should be more encouragement that says like, hey, you can bring an idea to the table, and before we put this on chain for a massive vote, like go and fix it and set better timelines, have better details, have better planning, so that when we do get to that stage, that's not just the end all be all, that we have that in between. So that's I'm going to be contemplating that one tonight and what that could look like from a procedural standpoint. So
yeah, if you ever want to dive deep on this area, the person you talk with is on our team. His name is Gavin Birch. So he's the one who's thought the most about this, and so he's the one who really has grabbed the torch for governance in our company. And just to kind of describe how hard this is, when Cosmos Hub was upgrading from 2 to 3, I think we went all the way to like proposal F or G, so 6 or 7, of just trying to get that right. And this is someone who's like sort of full-time job is just thinking about this stuff. And so as a result of us doing some of these on-chain proposals that actually eventually get accepted, we've actually he created some new software that allows people to sort of to do these early polling. And I think he'll be announcing that soon. But it's your exact point. I think people are like, there's really 2 ways you can ask, or you can do proposals now. You can do an on-chain proposal for funds from an on-chain pool. And we were actually the first successful on-chain proposal, but there's been rejected ones too. And then there's more what are called signaling proposals, which just says, we all agree to do this thing. Like all the validators are going to upgrade to this software version at this time. And so what I'm hoping is that we can really encourage people to kind of go this sort of community funding route, the community pool, because that is totally permissionless, and it's something that we can sort of fund more interesting things happening on these networks.
So with Secret Network, there's an interesting tension that's created, because Secret Network will allow secret voting. So that's kind of a sandbox we've never it's one of those use cases that way back in the day we talked about, but now we're close to that being a reality. So for me, I kind of view it as like, man, there could be some serious trade-offs and ramifications and pros from this type, incorporating secret voting. So I'm curious, since Figment has dealt with governance side things, and clearly you guys are a dedicated organization that cares a lot about that. What are your thoughts on secret voting?
Right. So I would say that I'm not the right person to talk about this. I haven't thought about it enough. I will give my first offhand reaction to it, which is to say the model I tend to like is the vote is secret during the tallying, and after everything is completed, then it's sort of a reveal phase. Where you can kind of see where people net it out. So I like the idea that during the vote collection process, you're not swayed either way, and then sort of it's revealed afterwards. So there's still accountability. I think that's a model that makes sense to me. That said, I'm also just on the fly, just trying to think through. Like I've seen proposals swing, and so you can change your vote in the Cosmos style governance proposal up until the very last minute. And so I've seen them go from 80% yes to 80% no. And so I see the value in that too. Someone makes a good point, and then it swings. And so I haven't thought through it all yet, but I like this sort of private vote, public reveal that I've seen that be successful.
Yeah, it definitely kind of Pandora's box with possibilities there. And governance is already this grand experiment that blockchain has had a chance to work on. So it'll be fun to continue to see it evolve. So what value do you think the Secret Network brings to the wider blockchain space? We've talked about Cosmos, and I would hope most people in the Cosmos ecosystem at least know that Secret Network exists. But I don't know if you've heard about IBC and the potential chance for Secret Network to be cross-chain to Ethereum, and there's some possibilities. So I'd love to have you weigh in on that.
Sure. Yeah. So there's a few things to say here. So whenever I think about IBC, maybe I have the wrong frame, but I really think about how do we connect the zones in the Cosmos ecosystem, and how can we do that in a way that is programmatic, efficient, all that kind of stuff. When I think about connecting to other blockchains, which are outside of the Cosmos ecosystem, I think there's something that people should look into. See what's happening around, it's called PEGGY, P-E-G-G-Y, PEGGY. How can you create these sort of peg zones that peg different Ethereum tokens and bring them into Cosmos and vice versa? So I think that they're two related concepts, maybe different implementations. And so the point is though, is that I think having secret tokens, or however the implementation ends up coming out, can be valuable in both systems. And so, of course, going in and taking your atom and making it a secret atom, and then taking that secret atom and using it throughout the Cosmos ecosystem, I think that's going to be a big win. But I think also taking it into other ecosystems like Ethereum, I think that could also be a win too. So I think that we've seen systems like Monero or Zcash, talk about shielded transactions and privacy. But really, when you look at it, at least with Zcash, it seems like most people are not doing shielded transactions. And so the thing I'm really watching for is what are the use cases that will be necessary for privacy, or what will be benefit from privacy. So I think that if you look at Zcash payments, people say, I don't want to pay the extra money to do a shielded transaction, if you look at on-chain statistics. And so I'm hoping that we can move beyond just basic payments. And I think some more of these DeFi applications will sort of warrant or demand more privacy. So that's the place I'm watching.
Sure. So we kind of ask this question to every validator. I'm always fascinated by, there's lots of different blockchains with lots of different validators. And obviously Figment has a lot of experience as a validator. So kind of what are your long-term goals as a validator with the secret network? And what do you think separates a good validator from a great one?
Right. Yeah. So I think about this question a lot, and I laugh because I'm thinking back to, I'm someone who likes to write down what I'm thinking about the company each quarter, and look back at it and sort of laugh and think, oh man, what did I think back then? But I'll tell you how I've sort of evolved our approach as we've been in this space for a long time and learned stuff. So I think when we started the company, we said what makes a good validator is someone who doesn't get slashed. There's a lot of talk about high availability and being online, but really I think at the end of the day, the table stakes of being a good validator are not getting slashed, not losing people's money. If you go offline, at least in most Cosmos zones, the penalty for getting slashed is pretty low. But if you double sign, then you're really you're losing 5% or more of people's tokens. So that's really, I think, what makes a good validator is having protections for not getting slashed. What makes a great validator, I think, is someone who thinks more holistically about what this could be if we're all successful in 5 years. And so, to sort of toot my own horn, like what we said was, we think that a lot of blockchains need to be launched. We need to have tons of experimentation. I mentioned like governance is one form of iteration, but also like forking and launching new zones is another form of iteration. And so we need to be able to see what's happening on these chains. And so that's why we started we made some software called Hubble, or Hubble is a block explorer, which I think has 10 or soon to be 15 networks on it. So we sort of said, how can we help more of these chains launch? And then how can we help them grow? And so I think my personal thinking is the idea of a pure play validator, which just does validation. I think that's a valuable thing, but I think that if you want to turn that into a business and more than just a public good, I think you have to sort of layer on these extra software bits or extra consulting bits or sort of adding on. So at least that's our approach, and it sort of fits our strengths, but there's lots of ways to do it. You can do it via just content and writing. You can do it via evangelizing. There's tons of ways to do it. But I think the idea of just running servers and sort of collecting a check, that's just not going to cut it in the long run.
Sure. Well, yeah, thanks for answering that. I have one more question before we kind of close out and I give you your open mic moment. So just because you brought up that, the holistic view to being a validator, I'm curious, because you have so many different validators, nodes on different blockchain networks, do you have large delegators that you're communicating with on like a daily basis? Or is it like, what does the communication between delegator and validator look like with Figment in your mind?
Oh, great question. So this is a big missing piece, I think, which I call it the validator CRM problem, meaning like CRM, customer relationship management. You don't get to talk to your customers as a validator. You don't know who they are. There's some networks that are coming out, like there's one called Scale, where you actually have to accept delegations. You have to manually accept every delegation. So maybe you could know who they are, but like in general, there's not a way to talk to your customers, which is really strange. So I would say the way that we've been doing it is we created this Telegram channel called Staking Hub, and we created it as a place just to talk about staking in general. and to make ourselves more well-known. And so we end up hosting a bunch of like AMAs and interviews on it. And that's one way that we started to meet our customers. We've created a reporting system where if people want to get emails from us about what their earnings are, they can do that as well. But I would say this is largely, it's largely an open challenge for us. And I think someone could really come along and either take it as a sort of an on-chain messaging approach or verifying you own an account. Something like that can be done so that we can actually have a relationship with who I really call our customers, but really are anonymous delegators to us.
Right, because there's that weird line between like your delegators, clearly they support you because of, they believe in Figment and how they want to progress the ecosystem, but simultaneously, like the delegators also have a voice, and if that doesn't get heard, you don't know, like if a customer goes somewhere else, it's like you don't necessarily get that feedback cycle to be able to improve.
Yep.
So that's it's like that's a very intriguing dynamic. But yeah, thanks for running with the ball on that question, because I know that wasn't necessarily on the list. But
no, the one thing I'll add to that is like another sort of plug for us is, as part of that tool Hubble, anyone can subscribe to alerts for any validator. So I, of course, subscribe to our own validator, and something will come across, someone undelegated 50,000 atoms or something, and it's a sort of a punch in the gut. And usually if you lose a customer in sort of non-blockchain land, you can just say, like, oh, hey, where are you going? What's happening? How can we improve? But so I at least know when they leave, but I don't know why, which maybe that's worse. Maybe I wish I didn't know.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew, with Figment Network. So this is your open mic moment. You get to speak to the community right now. Anything you want to say to delegators, future delegators, the secret network, the whole community, this is your moment. So here you go.
Great. So what I would say is that I hope that the process for the folks who've been supporting Enigma for a long time to convert over to Secret, I hope that goes smooth. I hope that a lot of people can kind of get on board and see the new vision. I know that it was challenging. I know that it's been a long time coming. And I think, though, that the current setup, sort of launching Secret as a network, as a zone within Cosmos, and sort of the ability to bridge out from there, I think is huge. And I think that the bringing privacy to this ecosystem is something that is going to be widely adopted. And I think if we can kind of come together and push this over the line, then a lot of the new doors will open. So I'm excited to see what's going to come next.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Andrew, for taking time out of your day to jump on the show. This is the end of this episode, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe. We really are trying to give you a better view into who the validators are, why they're passionate about this ecosystem like Figment is, as we got to talk about today. So hope you guys have a great day.